and that this is an intro before actually starting. At 10:237 in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we have very practical instruction. Because on the way here, Apara Gaurangi was saying that she found it interesting that Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions how for removing some anarthas, one must exert oneself. Of course, exertion is always necessary, but it's especially noted as one must have determination and effort to overcome certain kinds of anarthas. Most particularly mentioned are the anarthas of idiocy. Does anybody know what idiocy is? The act of being idiotic. And before continuing, I'd like to say a preamble as a prayer to Srila Prabhupada and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Matsamo nasti papatma naparadi chakasyana parihare pilajame kimbruve purushottama yavatinam yata yuni yunafam chau yavatau yata mano binamate tadvan mano me ramatan tvayi bhumau skalita paranam bhumir eva valambanam tvayi jata paranam tvameva sharanam prabho govinda balabe radhe prarthaye tvamaham sada twadayam iti janatu govindo mam tvaya saha radhe vrindavanadishe karuna mrittavahani kripaya nijapadabja tasyam mayam pradiyatam hantaya madhura balahari dasavaryo yadrama Kṛṣṇa charanashvarasha pramoda manam tanoti sahago ganayostayo yat paniya suyavasakanda nakanda mulai. In this Mangalacharna of sorts, matsamo nasti papa mana paradi chakasthana. The prayer mentions in humility that I've committed millions of offenses and sins. Naparadi chakasthana parihari pilajame kimbruve purushottama is asking forgiveness for the Lord to overlook the shortcomings. And then yuvatinam yata yuni yunam cha yuvatau yata mano birabante tadvan. Mano means the mind. There's a way in which the mind is naturally attracted to the world. In fact, the Hamsa avatar of the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, in conversation with the four Kumaras, mentions how the sense objects are embedded in the mind. And we seem inextricably connected to the material world, but only through the mind. And he mentions that it's not that one has to detach oneself from the material world, but one has to detach oneself from one's mind. And the super genius methodology for this is mentioned by our acharyas. And in this verse, which you'll find in the Nectar of Devotion, yuvatinam yata yuni, just as young boys are naturally attracted to young girls, and young girls are naturally attracted to young boys. If there's a bus tour with boys and girls and they get off at the Grand Canyon, they won't notice the Grand Canyon. That's an empirical fact given to me by Manoram Prabhu. And he says, in a similar way, please let my mind be attracted to you, Kṛṣṇa, in such a spontaneous way. Matsamo nastiba. Yuvatinam yata yuni yunam cha yuvatau yata mano binabate tadvan mano me ramatam tvayi. Let my mind take pleasure in you, Kṛṣṇa. When we then are able to take pleasure in Kṛṣṇa, by hearing about Kṛṣṇa, then the mind comes to its natural state of happiness. And then, as Kṛṣṇa says in the Bhagavad Gita, Vishaya vinivartante nirahara sadehina rasavarjam rasopyasya paran vishvanivartate. When one sees or tastes something superior, then the inferior tastes are not consequential. It's not something that one has to restrain oneself from. It's simply an observation that they're there. But there's no concerted effort needed to restrain oneself, Kṛṣṇa says. At that point, one is drawn to the superior taste and the superior vision. So this is the real renunciation, is to be attracted to reality. And so in these prayers, we're acknowledging that we're fully dependent on the mercy of Kṛṣṇa. And as I promised, an early bird special, which is still valid, even though we've gone into the time to begin. At text 37, from the 10th canto, 2nd chapter, and incidentally, if you have a Srimad Bhagavatam at home, this area of the Bhagavatam is a treasure trove, veritable treasure trove of jewel-like statements by Srila Prabhupada in his purports. And incidentally, historically, these are the last chapters that Prabhupada personally commentated upon, verses that he commentated upon, because he stopped speaking after 1013. And then he handed it over to his competent disciples to carry on the commentary and the translation. They were already doing the translation before that. And this verse says, Shrinvan granansam smarayanam chachintayan namani rupani cha mangalani te kriyasu yach twach charanara vindayor avishta chaitanya bhavaya kalpate. And the translation is as follows: even while engaged in various activities, devotees whose minds are completely absorbed at your lotus feet, and who constantly hear, chant, contemplate, and cause others to remember your transcendental names and forms, are always on the transcendental platform, and thus they can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And if I may, I'd like to read you the purport. Okay. How bhakti yoga can be practiced is explained in this verse. Srila Rupa Goswami has said that anyone who has dedicated his life to the service of the Lord, iha yasya hṛt-karṇa-rasāyanāḥ, by his activities, his mind, and his words, karmana manasa gira, may stay in any condition of life, nikilas yavastastu, and yet there's no longer, yet is no longer actually conditioned, but is liberated, jivan mukta suuchite. Even though such a devotee is in a material body, he has nothing to do with this body, for he is transcendentally situated. Narayana paraksarvena kutaśchana bhibyati. Because a devotee is engaged in transcendental activities, he is not afraid of being materially embodied. That's from Bhagavatam 6, 17, 28. Those who have read through the 6th canto will remember Maharaj Chitraketu and how he was not concerned with being cursed by Parvati. And Lord Shiva noted that he spoke this verse. Illustrating this liberated position, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prayed, Mama janmani janmani shvare bhavatad bhakti rahaitu kitwai. All I want is your causeless devotional service in my life, birth after birth. Even if a devotee, by the supreme will of the Lord, takes birth in this material world, he continues his devotional service. When King Bharat made a mistake and in his next life became a deer, his devotional service did not stop, although some slight chastisement was given to him because of his negligence. Narada Muni says that even if one falls from the platform of devotional service, he is not lost, whereas non-devotees are lost entirely because they are not engaged in service. Bhagavad Gita 9:14 therefore recommends that one always engage at least in chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Satataṁ kīrtayanto mam yatantaścha dṛḍha-vratāḥ namasyantaś jamam bhaktya nitya yukta upasate. Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, the great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. Did you catch that? You should at least chant Hare Krishna. At least chant Hare Krishna. Come on. Huh? Hare Krishna. Hare Ram. Rama Ram. If your mind ever gives you trouble, you just say, listen, at least chant Hare Krishna. One should not give up the process of devotional service, which is performed in 9 different ways: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, etc. The most important process is hearing, Shravanam, from the Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, the spiritual master, the saintly acharyas, and the Vedic literature. Sadhu, Shastra, Guru, Vakya, Shitete, Korya, Aikya. One should not hear the commentaries and explanations of non-devotees, for this is strictly forbidden by Srila Sanatana Goswami, who quotes from the Padma Purana, A Vaishnava mukund girnam putam harikatamritam shravanam naiva kartavyam sarpochistam yatapaya. We should strictly follow this injunction and never try to hear from Mayavadis, impersonalists, Dvaitists, politicians, or so-called scholars, strictly avoiding such inauspicious association. We should simply hear from pure devotees. Srila Rupa Goswami therefore recommends Sri Guru Padashraya. One must seek shelter at the lotus feet of a pure devotee, who can be one's guru. Lord Chaitanya advises that a guru is one who strictly follows the instructions of Bhagavad Gita. Jaridako tarikaha Krishnupadesh. A juggler, a magician, or one who speaks nonsense as an academic career is not a guru. Rather, a guru is one who presents Bhagavad Gita, Krishna's instructions, as it is. Shravana is very important. One must hear from the Vaishnava Sadhu, Guru, and Shastra. The word kriyasu, meaning by manual labor or by work, is important in this verse. One should engage in practical service to the Lord. In our Krishna consciousness movement, all our activities are concentrated upon distributing Krishna literature. This is very important. One may approach any person and induce him to read Krishna literature so that in the future he may become a devotee. Such activities are recommended in this verse. Kriyasu yat-tvaścharanaravindayo. Such activities will always remind the devotees of the lotus feet, of the Lord's lotus feet. By fully concentrating on distributing books for Krishna, one is fully absorbed in Krishna. This is samadhi. That was your early bird special. And now I'm going to give you a few encouraging statements from this, as I mentioned, treasure trove. And next verse, I'll just mention something from the purport that I find endlessly inspiring. And I hope you do too. This is at 10.1.3. And in this purport, next to it, I make notations in the purports. I put an exclamation mark when there's something that really catches my attention. And this purport, well, I'll read the verse in purport. The super soul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, the cause of the cosmic manifestation, appeared in the dynasty of Yadu. Please tell me elaborately about his glorious activities and character from the beginning to the end of his life. It's good, we're moving up already. But it's interesting how we configure it. Anyway, I'll read the purport again because it's so consequential. The super soul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, the cause of the cosmic manifestation, appeared in the dynasty of Yadu. Please tell me elaborately about his glorious activities and character from the beginning to the end of his life. So that's a subject matter to discuss. And then, as mentioned by Shukadev in the second canto of the Bhagavatam, there are many topics to discuss in this world. When I was a kid, there was 2 channels, and you had to get up. That's television, by the way, if there still is. You had to get up and walk across the room and turn the channel. I think Elvis Presley was one of the first ones to get a clicker because it was so advanced, only very rich people could get it back in the early 60s. And Now, I don't know how many channels there are, but there's the wedding channel, the wedding cake channel, the wedding dress channel. I've seen it. Not that I watch it, but I've seen it. Purport. In this verse, the word kritavan yani, the words kritavan yani indicate that all the different activities Kṛṣṇa performed while present on earth are beneficial to human society. If religionists, philosophers, and people in general simply hear the activities of Kṛṣṇa, they will be liberated. We have described several times that there are two kinds of Kṛṣṇa kathā, represented by Bhagavad Gita, spoken personally by Kṛṣṇa about himself, and Srimad Bhagavatam, spoken by Shukadeva Goswami about the glories of Kṛṣṇa. Mark this. Anyone who becomes even slightly interested in Kṛṣṇa kathā is liberated. I'll repeat for effect. Anyone who becomes even slightly interested in Kṛṣṇa kathā is liberated. So if you meet somebody at a book table and they're saying, like, what is this? That's slightly interested. Oh, those are interested. What is that? It's a slight interest, right? They're liberated. Kīrtayanto Kṛṣṇasya mukta sangha param vrajat. Anybody know that verse? Do you remember it from the beginning? Yes. What is it? This is a consequential verse from the 12th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a summation of many of the points of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Kalir dosha nidhe rajan asti heko mahad guna. Kīrtayanto Kṛṣṇasya mukta sangha param vrajat. This is very helpful because, as advertised in the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, when sages at Naimisharanya were interviewing Sutta Goswami, they commented that this is a very difficult age. Prayanal payushasha bhyagkalavas minyugajana manna sumanna matayo manna bhagya hupadrita. In this iron age of Kali, men have but short lives, they're quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. And we are like, who will... And they're amazed at the potency of Kṛṣṇa kathā and what it will do for any conditioned soul in this world who's suffering from birth and death, just to hear or even be slightly interested. So they ask, Kova bhagavatastasya punya shloketi karmana shrudikami nashiduyad yasya kali malapaham. Who is there in the age of Kali who won't do this? And of course we know the answer from later on, right? Etc. You know, people who still have this irrational desire to kill themselves spiritually, or who are engaged in murderous activities in this world. So they say, or Shukadeva Goswami sums up at the end of the Bhagavatam, that there's one process through which this faulty age can be navigated. And that is by Kṛṣṇa kathā, chanting the holy name of the Lord, hearing Kṛṣṇa kathā. And I still am affected by that amazing class that Vaishnava Maharaj gave here. Do you remember that? The shot heard around the world. Just his very presence here was just so effective to see the parampara going on and to hear him speak so expertly on the Bhagavatam. And he emphasized the verse, Jnane prayasa mudapasya namanta eva jivanti san mukaritam bhavadiyāvartam. That part stuck in my mind, jivanti san mukaritam bhavadiyāvartam, that if you only live for this one thing, you're not a fool. You're the most intelligent person. If you just stay alive somehow or other so that you can attend the classes, or so somehow or other you can crawl across the room and turn on the broadcast and hear it. Somehow or other try to live so that you can hear this. And that everything else spiritually consequential will unfold in your life. And jivanti san mukaritam bhavadiyāvartam. And so we have here this clear point of interest. Tasmat ekena manasa bhagavan sattvatam pati shrotavya kirtitavyascha dhyaya pujam shanityada Sutta Goswami says at the beginning of the Bhagavatam, you do one thing, and that is focus on your hearing and chanting. Everything else will expand from there. Don't worry about fixing the material world. It's not fixable, nor can you untangle the many knots that you are encumbering you in this lifetime. You can, however, cut through them. Right? Chindanti kavidastasya kona kuriya kataratim. You can cut them by this one process of one pointed attention. Therefore, tasmat ekena, one thing. Manasa, put your mind in one place. Bhagavan sattvatam. On Bhagavan, he's your protector. He's your main person. Don't worry about other people. Bhagavan sattvatam shrotavya kirtitavyascha. Just hear and chant. Dhyeya, meditate, pujas, worship, chanityada. How frequently should you do it? Like a lot. Nityada means always. So do it as much as you can. Keep doing it. Simply by chanting or repeating Kṛṣṇa kathā, one is liberated from the contamination of Kali Yuga. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore advised, Jari dako tahe kaha Kṛṣṇa upadesh. This is the mission of Krishna consciousness, to hear about Krishna and thus be liberated from material bondage. Now, obviously, all of you are more than slightly interested in Kṛṣṇa kathā. Otherwise, you wouldn't have come early. And you wouldn't have driven through traffic to come here to talk about Balaram. So feel encouraged and know that the application of Krishna consciousness is so potent that a little bit goes a long way. And if you somehow or other manage to keep the transcendental vibration going, you will be successful. You want more proof of that? Yes, Vaisesika. Page 29, for instance. Here's page 25, which happens to be 10.1.4 in the last paragraph. Prabhupada writes in his purport, I'm giving excerpts for encouragement. If anyone willingly or unwillingly hears Kṛṣṇa kathā, his bhava rog, the disease of birth and death, will certainly stop. I'll repeat for emphasis. If anyone willingly or unwillingly hears Kṛṣṇa kathā, his bhava rog, that's not a good thing, the disease of birth and death will certainly stop. One more time. You ready? Yes. If anyone willingly or unwillingly hears Kṛṣṇa kathā, his bhava rog, the disease of birth and death will certainly stop. So on our Rath Yatra excursion in Los Angeles, we went through the upscale town of Santa Monica. People are not hurting financially there. So as we were going down the street, or as Lord Jagannath was going down the street and we were going with him, you notice things, right? You see things and they stick in your mind. So this is one thing that stuck in my mind. As we were coming down the sidewalk, I saw a very well-dressed family come out of a posh restaurant there, apparently having just had breakfast, living a normal life in the material world, and a well-heeled one at that, living in Santa Monica. And as they came out, the matriarch of the family holding hands with her daughter, and there was a few other family members in tow, apparently surprised by the pageantry and unaware that it was coming, was startled. And she looked up at Lord Jagannath, she said, "Oh my God." And I thought, there you go. And Lord Jagannath, mm-hmm. And so this idea of willingly or unwillingly, we hear also Vasudeva kata prashna purusham shrinpunatihi vaktaram prachakam shrotrins pada salilamyata. This is something that Parikshit Maharaj mentions, that the Kṛṣṇa kathā is so powerful, so potent, that there's a speaker who's obviously into it, otherwise he or she wouldn't be there, and then the listeners who are intently situated just to hear, And then there are everybody else in between, betwixt and between. They get the benefit of Krishna kathā. Just like the Ganges is flowing from the upper planetary systems, but it purifies the three worlds as it courses through everyone it touches. So Krishna kathā is like that. I'd also like to mention some of a poetical phrase. One of Prabhupāda's penchants for phraseology that is especially lends itself to mantras and the presentation, the brief presentation of Krishna consciousness in such a way that people can assimilate it, that I found at text number 10.1.34 in the second paragraph. Prabhupada writes, the entire world is suffering because of spiritual thirst. The entire world is suffering because of spiritual thirst. I don't know about you, but I hate being thirsty. Sometimes I wake up at night, I'm thirsty, and it's a real bummer. So, if there's thirst, there means thirst can be quenched. And if anybody wanted to know why people are anxious, why people are morose, why is there morosity in the world? Why is there anxiety in the world? What is the cure for it all? It's to quench the thirst with Krishna kathā. And once people are in the shelter of the sound vibration, satataṁ kīrtayanto mam yatantaś dṛḍha-vratāḥ, or mahātmānas tumam pārtha, daivīṁ prakṛtim āśritāḥ. Krishna says, if you're in the association of mahātmās, great souls, what are they doing? Satāṁ prasaṅgān mama vīrya-saṁvido bhavanti hṛt-karṇa-rasāyanāḥ kathā tajjoshanat ashva pavargavartmini shradharatir bhakti anukramishati. Kapila Dev says, here's what devotees do. They're always engaged in hearing and chanting about Krishna. Satāṁ prasaṅgān. If you sit with sadhus, you're going to hear something that is spiritually melodious. And it's no ordinary melody. It's not a titillation of the sense for hearing something which one may grow tired of, but he says it goes in the ear, and then from the ear it goes in the heart, and it acts like medicine to overcome the attachments one has to the bhava rogue, or the constantly changing, treacherous material world. And then step by step, just by that process of sitting with sadhus. A godbrother of mine years ago, who no one had seen for some time, but he was off the grid, so to speak, but not the spiritual grid. He had been intensely hearing and chanting in association with seriously minded people. I know a number of devotees who have disappeared just to do Krishna kathā. I remember Rajendra Nandana Prabhu. Do you remember him? Yes. Great friend of ours. And he had gone with a couple of devotees to Arkansas, of all places. If you want to get away, go to Arkansas. No one will ever look for you there. And they had set up in some rural place. They got a projector. And then they started projecting Prabhupada's books on the wall. And they would just read all day long. Because they had worked hard for many years. They felt at an impasse in many ways. And so they just heard and chanted. So I had another godbrother who kind of went off the grid for just a little while. And then he showed up in Los Angeles. And somebody asked him to give class. And he gave such a rousing, deeply realized class. People were saying, well, where have you been? And he said, yeah, they were surprised. They didn't know I was associating with sadhus. And that's what happens if you associate with sadhus. They hear and chant. And they go deeply within the subject matter. And therefore, Satāṁ prasaṅgān vīrya-saṁvido bhavanti hṛt-karṇa-rasāyanāḥ. It's a relief. The sound vibration is so relieving. In opposition to the sound vibration that goes on in the material world, constant anxiety, for material gain, which never actually comes, or if it does come, it causes more consternation. And then he says, that one naturally sloughs off the attachment to the material world and also becomes freed from the process of birth and death, which is called pavarga. Ma, which means, means that if you live in the material world, you got to work hard. Before you're born, your parents set up a little, if they're wealthy enough, they set up a little fund for you so that you can go to school. And why do they want you to go to school? So that you can work hard. And why do you have to work hard? Go to school and work in a job? Because you got to pay for stuff. And that never stops until, as Kṛṣṇa says in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Devarshi bhutatnam rinam pitrinam, no, it's Karabhajana. Devarshi bhutatnam rinam pitrinam na kinkaro nayam ranicha rajan sarvatmana. I'm not saying you shouldn't work, by the way, or go to school. But this is a very important philosophical point to keep in mind as we stage our lives in progressive eras to come to the point of fully concentrating on Kṛṣṇa. That can be done at every stage. It has to be. And in fact, it's indicated by our acharyas I'm coming back to the verse in a second. Acharyas who talk about how even Balaram went into the womb of Rohini. And there's all these questions. And how does Balaram have anything to do with the womb where the Sadgarbha Asuras had been there? Those are the 6 sons of Devaki who were first born and then killed by Kamsa. And one of our acharyas said this is to show the intermixture of material and spiritual environments that we have to live in this world and learn how to balance the two. So I'm not advocating for some abject renunciation, but learning how to keep the transcendental vibration going. And in the verse, Devarshi bhutatna nrinam pitrinam na kinkaro nayam nranicha rajan sarvatmana yasharanam sharanyam gato mukundam hṛt-karṇa-rasāyanāḥ, you have the secret to happiness. Only 2 people said yay. Like if you tell that to people on the street, they'll go, yeah, right, I'm in a hurry, get lost. But here it says that we're debtors. That's why you got to work so hard. That's pa. Pa means you come into the world and say, Shnicky, pick up the pace. We want A's here, not A minuses, because you got to get a job. And summertime blues, you got to work. God, I'm working late. So there's a way in which everyone has to work hard in the material world, but when one's no longer a debtor, why do you have to work hard? Right? Who do you owe? The devas. Just like you enjoy electricity at home, right? Say yes. Have you ever had a electrical outage? Did you keep turning the light on anyway? And you thought, what's that about? Yeah, it's not easy. I met some devotees in Hungary, and they lived off the grid. So I was going around interviewing them, looking at their houses, and they had these wells to get water from, bucket on a thing. And I said, oh, that's quaint. How is that? And he goes, it's really hard. And we have all these amenities, electricity, indoor plumbing, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff. And so what do you get at the end of the month? You get a little bill, a window letter that says, pay up, man. So the devas, they're providing all kinds of amenities here in the material world. You got to pay for that stuff, it turns out. Devarshi bhutapna, there's all kinds of living entities who render a service. Anybody who does something for you, you owe them. Bhutatna nrinam pitrinam, the forefathers. I mean, where'd you get all your stuff now? Admit it, you inherited some of it, right? Say yes, see me afterwards. We'll talk about a living trust and how to pass it on to Kṛṣṇa next time. And so, we owe everybody. So that means we're rini, we're debtors, but Sarvatmanaya sharanam sharanyam. If you surrender to Mukunda, Kṛṣṇa, and just say, Kṛṣṇa, everything for you, I'm handing it all in, it's parallel to the tax system here in America, why most rich people don't pay any taxes, because they don't own anything. It's like, what are you talking about? Where's all this stuff? Belongs to my company. That's how it works, right? Accountants, anyone? CPA, bookkeeper, anyone? We need more CPAs. They don't own anything because they've already signed it over to the company. It doesn't belong to me. I just use the stuff. So that's the idea spiritually also. Mukundam parihrita kartam. Everything's used for Kṛṣṇa, for Mukunda. So nothing belongs to me. There's no debt. And when one has the wherewithal, as Kṛṣṇa says in the Bhagavad Gita, one evolves to this position. Tavat karmana kuravita na nirvidyeta yavata matkata shravanado va sharayava najayate. In the beginning, one has to work very hard to maintain and juggle everything. As one becomes more and more sustained by one's service and Kṛṣṇa kathā, then there's a way in which he says that when that shraddha is so strong, you find out, as we used to say as kids, look, Ma, no hands. You know, riding the bicycle, you take your hands off, say, I can ride without my hands. So the devotees realize, oh, Kṛṣṇa is maintaining me anyway, behind the scenes, and they become more and more dependent on Kṛṣṇa and taking shelter of Kṛṣṇa kathā. So what we have here is the answer to the world's problems. And it's in this sentence. The entire world is suffering because of spiritual thirst. And if you're annoyed at your significant others, anyone? You don't have to admit it. Yeah? Okay. We got two people. If you don't like the way I'm not even going to mention government or anything like that. It's possible to be annoyed here in this material world. If you don't like the way things are going, trace it back. There's a cause for that spiritual thirst in yourself, in myself. Fill yourself up. Make sure you're hydrated, spiritually hydrated. Otherwise, you're going to feel annoyed at your very life. You'll feel skeptical and you'll be afraid and so forth. But Kṛṣṇa kathā changes all that. So that's why the Lord appears in the world. He wants to solve everyone's problems all at once by coming himself and presenting his pastimes to the world. That's why we have the Srimad Bhagavatam. And that's why we are so insistent that people take a look at it. At least come and sit in the class. We know from experience that young people in the beginning, they feel like they will get the most out of playing. But we've had eyewitness testimonials from those who have grown up in this community who came and sat in inordinately long classes that had to do with Kṛṣṇa kathā, that it catches on you after a while. There's a way in which Kṛṣṇa kathā is sticky. In fact, the gopis mentioned in one of their prayers that Kṛṣṇa is like mango sap. If you get mango sap in your hair, you just have to cut your hair off because it's not coming out. There's nothing in the world will get rid of it. And so they complain that this Kṛṣṇa, just seeing him, hearing about him, hearing his flute playing, it gets in you. We can't get it off. And so when people come and they hear a little Kṛṣṇa kathā, a little more, it awakens something in their hearts. So this is Krishna's his intention of coming to the world is to give everyone this opportunity to hear about his pastimes. And then as far as his appearance goes, we find that, and not to preempt Janmashtami, but it's part and parcel because it's the unfoldment of Kṛṣṇa. When a king comes to town or a big personality is appearing, first you have to, like, let's say the biggest band in the world who's coming to town to play a concert. Who might that be? Huh? No, it was the Beatles, sorry. when they would come to town, they'd have to get ready for all the crowds, and they'd also have to build a huge stage and get the sound system ready and everything like that. Or if a movie's coming to town, you have to have a movie theater. Or there's a play, you have to build a stage. So before Kṛṣṇa comes, he organizes everything so the stage is ready and people then can watch the play unfold. Maya javani kacchanam agnat hokshajam avyayam nalakshashe mudha-drisha nato natyata rodyata. Kṛṣṇa is an actor. He comes and performs his pastime on the stage. So in that stage, there has to be some foundation. So today is the appearance day of Lord Balaram. And there's an interesting description of how Kṛṣṇa arranges for the stage to be built for his appearance in the world. First of all, we know that Brahma goes to, on behalf of Bhumi. Bhumi feels it the most because we're stepping on it right now. In fact, when I wake up in the morning, I follow the Archana Paddhati. I say a few prayers, and then before I swing my big feet on the ground and put them down, I say, Mother Bhumi, please forgive me for stepping on your surface. She feels it. And so she feels it when there are demonic people on the planet. And she lets Brahma know, he's the GBC, of what's going on, how the world's becoming overburdened. And then Brahma goes to the shore of the Milk Ocean here in the material world and offers prayers, most notably the Purusha Sukta. That's why we wanted to introduce the Purusha Sukta here. Everyone's complaining, so I got a little discouraged. Not really. I think we just forgot to do it, but if you want to learn it, it's not that hard. And then Kṛṣṇa replies that he's coming and he's going to bring, and he also orders his servants to come, demigods, and his eternal associates. They appear before he comes, take birth in various places where he's going to perform his pastimes. So his mother, father, they're already arranged. And Vasudeva, Devaki are present on the earth for his appearance. And then, of course, the unfoldment at the beginning of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we hear the story of how Devaki and Vasudeva had just been married, and coming home on the chariot, there's a voice from the sky, much like getting a text in the middle of when you're doing something important, and then you get a text, and they're like, oh no, and everyone's like, wait a minute, what happened? It can change everything, right? And so he wants to execute his sister on the chariot. Vasudeva talks him out of it. And the prophecy from the sky was that the 8th offspring from Devaki would kill you. It would be your death. So, just interesting in counting, because the 6 first sons of Devaki were killed by Kamsa. So there's a history behind the 6. They were sons, 6:15. I have a little time, right? The 6 sons, first 6 sons of Devaki, had a history, as does every living entity in the world. If you want to write an autobiography, write an autobiography of the jiva, of yourself as a jiva. You'll have to do a lot of research because there have been quite a few previous lifetimes. If you want to interview any jiva, all they can tell you basically is like, all I can remember is a little bit from this lifetime. But what to speak of the millions of other lifetimes? What a story that would be. So these 6 had been sons of Kalanemi, who is the son of Hiranyakashipu. That made them the grandsons of Hiranyakashipu. What a lovely family. Imagine the holidays. So they had become traitors to the clan of Hiranyakashipu, who was the grandfather of the family, and they had gone to Brahma to ask benedictions. They performed severe austerities, and they wanted a similar thing that Hiranyakashipu had asked for when he had performed austerities. And by the way, he got it from Brahma also. But that's the nature of demons. They're very selfish. And Brahma had granted them some benedictions. And then when Hiranyakashipu, the grandfather, found out that they had gone to Brahma, rather than come to him, the all-powerful Hiranyakashipu, he became so annoyed with them, which is a euphemism, he cursed them that your father will be reborn and then he'll kill you. What a horrible, convoluted, evil thing to say, isn't it? But that was the curse. But somehow it works into Krishna's pastimes because they, these six, became the six children of Devaki, and they're born one after another. Now, as it turns out, each one of them would attain liberation upon being killed in that situation. And they represent, according to our acharyas, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, they represent the beginning of devotional service when we naturally still have attachments to the material world. And the six are Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Mada, Moha, and Matsarya. These are the six dread conditions of the soul in the material world, who's overcome by these low qualities. So each one of the Satgarbha asuras represent them. So what happens symbolically is that each one of them is killed progressively. And then Balaram is invited from the womb of Devaki to the womb of Rohini by Yogamaya, because Kṛṣṇa has his plan. And I always have a hard time remembering familial relationships. Luckily for me, I don't have many. I maybe have one or two cousins, and I don't have 52, like you guys. But it's hard for me, the relationship, to figure out which one goes where, how it goes where. Talk about Kamsa, the poor guy. He was trying to keep track of everything. The 8 offspring would kill him, but then there was a miscarriage, and then there was this transfer. The one that the offspring that was born, that was growing within the womb of Devaki, Kṛṣṇa said, transfer to the womb of Rohini at Nanda Baba's house, and Nandagram, where Rohini was hiding from Kamsa. So then she became pregnant with Baladev. It's transferred. It's one of the reasons he's called Shankarshan. He was attracted to the womb of Rohini. So then there was apparently a miscarriage. So then how do you keep track? Which one's the 8th? Do you count that or not? That's confusing. And so after the 6 Garbha asuras are killed, which represents the devotee's engagement in sadhana bhakti, overcoming these anarthas one after another, it opens the possibility of Kṛṣṇa fully entering your life. Sattvam Vishudam Vasudeva Shabditam Yad Iyate Tatra Puman Apavrita. Lord Shiva spoke this first, and he says, as soon as you clear these lower qualities from your life, and you come to Shuddha Sattva, which, by the way, is possible, as we know from Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, 2nd chapter, by the process of Shravanam Kirtanam. Right? Yes. Say yes. Shinvatam Swakata Kṛṣṇa. And then you have Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu, Tada Rajas Tamo Bhava Kamalobadayasche, Cheta Idhir Navidam, Stitam Sattve means Shuddha Sattva. Prasiddhiti. Then one comes to this level of Shuddha Sattva, and Sattvam Bishuram Vasudeva Shabditam. From that position, Apavrita, there's no more impediment for seeing Kṛṣṇa directly. So now there's another element to this that's very important, and that is that Devaki was constantly in fear. And what was she afraid of? Kamsa, and losing her child, because Kamsa was a murderous, horrible person. He was trying to kill Kṛṣṇa. So now our acharyas tell us that the fear of the sadhaka, it is important, they say. The fear of the sadhaka is that we're living in a material body, and our senses are interconnected with the material world. We should be also afraid of being pulled away from our concentration on our practice of devotional service. How many people get pulled away from their practice of devotional service? Almost everybody. I'm not asking you guys. I'm just saying, even during one round, we're practically pulled away. What speak of a lifetime, you find somebody who wasn't pulled away one way or another and distracted and either crashed and burned or had some major scrapes on their arms from, their involvement in the material world. So it makes sense that those who want to advance in devotional service should have this healthy fear and be careful. Then when Balaram appears, all auspicity is there. And even Kamsa felt it. When Balaram appeared in the womb of Devaki, he could feel the presence. He was thinking, something's coming. It's happening. And we'll feel that too. Namani rupani cha mangalani te. It's mangalani. When you start hearing and chanting, and you come to this point of having steadiness in your devotional service, nobody has to give you a certificate. You know for yourself, my life is auspicious despite the external circumstances. It's not an intellectual process. I gave a program down in Los Angeles last Thursday night, and someone was asking about trying to make their mind more grateful and induce that kind of feeling. And I said, if you hear and chant in devotional service, you chant Hare Krishna, there's an awakening that cannot be denied. It's like when the sun comes up in the morning. It's not an intellectual process, but it's an awakening of the soul's relationship with Krishna. It becomes altogether apparent. So on the Jayanti, the day of Balaram, this is a day to remember. The full moon is out. All possibilities are here for us in this world. A slight attachment guarantees success. Willingly or unwillingly, even if you're unwilling, hand somebody else the book, said, read to me and shoot me if I leave the room. And keep the process of devotional service, the hearing and chanting going somehow or other in the beginning stages, and be a little aware that the material world's a fearsome place. If I'm give in to idiocy, which is one of I just extracted it from a book called the Chaitanya Shikshamrita, but it was translated by somebody from the very ancient Gaudiya Math days. It had some interesting phraseology. And one of us was describing Dhenukasura, who's one of the demons that Balaram killed. And then what does Dhenukasura, what anomaly within the heart of a conditioned soul, what does he represent? Idiocy. You don't want that. So we have to overcome idiocy. And then there's Pralambasura, who represents licentiousness, being attracted to the base interactions of the senses with the material world that are available even to animals. And the Bhagavat keeps saying, if the animals get it, why do you want it? Aren't you smarter than that? Can't you take something on a more subtle level? So we have all that. And Balaram assures us when he appears, it nails it down and comes in and reminds us every year that you've got this. You can take this all the way if you just dedicate this life even a little bit on a constant level to hearing and chanting and keep up the process. He comes to encourage us. He'll enter within our hearts. He's already there. He's Vishvatma. He's already entered within everything in everyone's heart. You just have to light the fire and fire comes out. What's that verse? Yava yavitano vanir darushveka sayonishu naneva pativishvatma bhuteshu tata puman. Just like fire's already in wood, you just have to light it and then it comes out naturally. So the bhakti's already there. you just have to keep applying the process and then it'll come out. You got to admit it's a spiritually charged environment, the Hare Krishna. And even when you're on the street and you hear Hare Krishna, you're like, wait a minute. Maybe I'll reconsider my whole life. Just that one sound. It says Rupa Goswami, Yada baso pyudyan kavalita bhavadvanta vibhavo drisham tatvandanam dishati bhakti pranayinim. He said even if someone's tattva andanam, they know nothing. Ignorant, idiocy, complete lunacy. But if they hear Hare Krishna, then just that abas, just a little bit hits them. Then there's a way in which they're awakened to bhakti. Bhakti is the highest thing because Krishna doesn't have the fault of impersonality. He has an impersonal feature which emanates from him, but ultimately the highest feature is his loving personality in relationship to his devotees. That's available through the devotional chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. And whoever it hits, that sound vibration channeling down through the disciplic succession, those who are living a lifestyle in which they're purposefully propitiating Krishna on a daily basis, begging for his mercy. That sound vibration itself is transformative and changes the hearts of people who come in contact with it. That's 2-3 minutes. Let's hear if you have any comments. Yes, dṛḍha-vratāḥ. As you can notice, as we're speaking, we're getting ready for the Abhishek, and that'll start promptly at 6:15.
I was just, as you were speaking, I was remembering a purport from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Srila Prabhupada quotes Anarthopasanam Sakshat through the hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam, and then he gives a short explanation. He says, one can overcome all misconceptions and entanglement in the material world by practicing bhakti yoga, and therefore Vyasadeva, acting on the instruction of Sri Narada, has very kindly introduced Srimad Bhagavatam to relieve the conditioned souls from the clutches of Maya. And this particular sentence has always struck me. Lord Chaitanya's spiritual master instructed him, therefore, that one must read Srimad Bhagavatam regularly and with scrutiny to gradually become attached to the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra.
Scrutiny. Look it up. One must scrutinize the Srimad Bhagavatam. There's a way in which we have to find a siddhanta. Siddhanta bole chitta nakara alash. Iha hoite Krishna lage sudrid manash. This is the statement of Kaviraj Goswami in relationship, in context of him discussing the ways in which the Lord appears in this world, appropriate for today's topic. And he mentions how people have various tastes for their relationship with the Lord, and some say Narayan is the source of everything, some say Krishna, some say Vaman. And he says that he gives various logical arguments about why Krishna is the fountainhead of everything. He said, but of course if people have other tastes and opinions, that's okay too, because it's in relationship to the Supreme Absolute Truth, who is in whom everything else is possible. But he also, in this statement, says that one shouldn't be lazy at coming to a very clear conclusion. Someone may say, oh, it's all good, all paths are the same, and that's lazy. And also, all sampradaya is all the same thing. No, not really. Everything has its bias. And in personality, there's a sense of bias. In impersonality, one says it's all utopian, and it's all one, and we're all good. But in bhakti, there's a sense of, no, this is good. We like Krishna with a peacock feather. That's what Rath Yatra is all about. Radharani and her minions get to the Dwarka environment and they say, not so much. We only like the Vrindavan thing, not this so much. And Krishna says, no, I like it too, I'm coming back. And they say, okay, we can go now. So the point is that we should be scrutinizing, which means from our research department, they had lost funding recently and didn't have a microphone.
Scrutiny is a noun, and it means critical observation or examination.
Critical observation or examination. So examine Prabhupada's books. There's enough for several lifetimes of, or more, of scrutinizing. Okay, any other points or thoughts? Yes. The very stoic Yogadish. Stoic and steady.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
3 minutes left.
Hare Krishna. You've mentioned before that Balaram is described as the Adi Guru. In the Guru, when we were doing Sri Guru Vandana this morning, I noticed one of the translations to one of the words. It said, attachment to the lotus feet of the spiritual master is the best means of spiritual advancement. Can you elaborate on what that means?
That when we are endeavoring to know God, in the beginning, we may not have a specific idea of how to connect. We just have an existential angst and need in our heart. And we may pray like Gajendra, who didn't know who the Supreme Personality of Godhead was. But then Krishna extends himself to us in various ways locally. He doesn't insist that we go to the Himalayas or anything like that. He'll come to Lafayette Valley Estates in Bay Area. I know, because I was sitting there making a prayer, and then suddenly the Back to Godhead magazine showed up. It's hard to find my house in Lafayette Valley Estates. It's out in the hills. I'm from the hill people. And somehow it found its way there. And so when I opened it, I saw a picture of Prabhupada. It was a message that, okay, you prayed. Now here's somebody who can hold you by the hand and give you personal instruction. And so there's a glorification of Guru Tattva. The way Krishna is merciful in that he comes as the Vartmana Pradakshika, he comes as the Shiksha Gurus, he comes as the Diksha Gurus. And therefore, Kaviraj Goswami starts this whole book about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Vande Gurun, Isha Bhaktan. He pluralizes the words at all these gurus. And then he makes these statements that we read before Guru Puja. Don't we read them? Did they all register? That he says these are manifestations of Krishna. They're manifestation of Krishna to reach to us personally, locally. And so there's a way that Krishna has given that special entrance for us to take up the process of devotional service. And that is why the Guru is glorified as being the entranceway into our process of loving Krishna. Krishna came to us, has come to us, continues to come to us locally. Yes, Kanka for the close, because we're ready for the Abhishek.
Hare Krishna. And when Balaram entered the womb of Devaki, he was preparing it for Krishna to enter. And he would always do that as the big brother. Go ahead but one time he told Mother Jasoda that Krishna ate dirt. And Krishna said, no, he's lying. He didn't eat dirt. So there's so many wonderful pastimes in the Krishna book of Balaram going ahead of Krishna to make things better for him.
And then on the days when Balaram's not there, conspicuous by his absence, as an example, the killing of Aghasura was the tithi of his birth, and he had to stay home and give charity, get all nicely dressed up and give charity. His mama helped him out with that. And also, in the time when Krishna got entrapped in Kaliya's coils, Balaram wasn't initially there. Krishna tends to get in more trouble during those times. We did discuss Pralambasura this morning a little bit, but there's so many more pastimes. Now we have an Abhishekam, which is unprecedented in Silicon Valley. We don't find the forms of the Lord appearing in brass, in wood, and pictures and so forth. But it's highly consequential when they do come. And the sensuousness of devotional service, being able to anoint the Lord with scents and pour these voluptuous substances like ghee, honey, and yogurt and so forth on his transcendental body. It's otherworldly and inexplicable. So let's take advantage. And now what we'll do is we can adjust our seating. If I adjust, how many degrees? 90 degrees. Make a 90-degree turn right, if you wish. And the staff is ready to go.
I will also request His Grace Vaisesika Prabhu to mention and say something on this.
It's a very important day, obviously, for people in Silicon Valley. We see that people who love Kṛṣṇa, but who are very busy during the year, come here at least once a year. And to see their dedication to drive across the valley, stand in line and wait for Kṛṣṇa, and to feel at home here is priceless. And it's one of the sweetest audiences that we have all year long. People are wide-eyed and very appreciative that this is going on, and we have an opportunity to greet them warmly, make them feel at home. For us, it's a service opportunity to clean everything. Whatever you see, take advantage of your free will and just do the needful. There's volunteer spots throughout the day and night for those who would like to follow in the footsteps of great devotees like Jayananda Prabhu or Ratnabhushan and many others who selflessly served, and then at least one of them we know for sure, certified, went back to Godhead. So you can do too. But that's the time really to make the environment nice and to be very gentle with the guests who come here. They come a long way. And when we're very friendly, welcoming, leave everyone with a good impression, go out of your way to make sure everyone's happy. And also, if you have a service, do it. And if you don't have a service, you can also consider not doing stuff. In other words, don't try to help people and do more than you need to as far as the guests go. Some people are asked to help control the flow of the pedestrians, and don't necessarily take it upon yourselves to chastise anybody unnecessarily or to reroute the traffic. Just, it's well organized. Just go with those who are authorized. And let's all be together and tell your boss you're not coming in. Of course, it's a Saturday, right? And we'll be here all day. We'll keep the vibration going from Mangalartik all the way till midnight. So look forward to seeing you all here. Hare Krishna.